Hi, I'm Greg Garcia here at Anglers All, and today we're going to tie a batwing emerger. It's a pattern by a gentleman by the name of Tracy Peterson, a good friend of mine who actually works for Hairline Dubbing at the moment, but at one point he was a guide up in Montana. He came up with this pattern a few years back, and it's something that's really fun to tie. It looks really good in your box, and the fish love them. And I think you'll enjoy tying them as much as I do. Thanks for watching. All right, well, let's first we got a hook, a Tiemco 2487, and then I am going to use a size small gunmetal Killer Caddis bead. And to get that bead on the hook, I think the easiest way is, normally I'll dump a few on the table. I will moisten my finger there, and then the bead will stick right to your finger. Then just get the hook point and just feed it right on in. I find that's about the easiest way to get a bead on the hook. Sometimes with tungsten beads it's a little harder to make that happen, but these little glass beads are so light, it's easy to do. Okay, next item is our thread, and I'm going to get that started right behind the eye. Just I'm going to quickly move that up about, maybe just a little bit past an eye width back. Slide the bead into position, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the thread over the back side of the bead and make one wrap so it just kind of sits in place there. Then once I kind of determine where I want it, I'm going to do a little thread dam in the back, and I'm going to cross back to the front, do another little thread dam right in front of that bead, and then run it right back to the back. And right there is where we want that position. It's kind of mid-thorax. We're still going to put some dubbing in this, so we don't want to have it too far back and then make our body look too short. At this point, I'm just going to advance my thread just right back to where it goes from a flat section and starts to go downwards. Next piece is we'll put our tails in. As I mentioned, we're going to use this tailing fiber material. I usually start off, with one feather. I will pull off all this fluff and just get this out of the way. There's no use for that. And then determine how much of this I want for my tail. I usually pick a pretty good chunk because, when this is wet, it'll compress. Won't look quite as thick as it does right there, but going to grab them by the tips and then pull it off the stem. You need to control it a little bit. You can just kind of quickly wet it. Now, to mount these on, I do this on a lot of flies when I'm going to use tailing materials like this. I predetermine my length, so right there is my length. I'm going to set it right in at a 45-degree angle, right where my thread is sitting. Change hands. Just one oddball out there. Then I'm just going to do a nice soft wrap. My second wrap, I increase my tension, and all of that rolls right on the top. All right, so we got that on there. Now, what I've been doing I've been pre-soaking some biots. Whenever you're going to tie with some biots, if you can pre-soak them, it'll keep that biot from being quite as brittle. Now, as you can see here, as I mentioned upstairs when we were picking material, I have these goose biots, quills. And on the inside, or the leading edge of that feather, that's the biots that we're going to pick off. And I'm going to use the left wing biot so that when I wrap it, it's going to be going in the direction I want to go. Curve is away from me. And this little notch will be pointing down. And I'll show that to you here on one of these. So what I'll normally do is just pop one of these off. Actually got two of them here. Drop those in the water. But you can see this little notch right there at my fingertip as it's kind of a little V there. So I'm going to be tying this in so that when I look at it, that notch will be going down. So I'll grab some of these pre-soaked ones. Make sure that curve is away from me so that when I go to advance this forward, it's curving in the right direction. Go right back down to the tail and then bring your thread right back up to the bead. I'm going to pop this straight up. You can see how that notch is going backwards. Grab this with my little biot hackle pliers. And I'm going to start wrapping forward. Now our first wrap is probably the most critical. That's where this biot is probably most likely to break. And as you can see there on that first wrap, I covered that first piece of fluff that wants to pop up. And then now I'm going to just advance that forward. As you can see, you get that nice little natural barring effect of a biot. And then we're going to tie this off. It's 3 little loose wraps. Cut that off. And then I'm going to make sure that biot is tied in very well. All right, now we're coming to the wing. So first off, you want to kind of figure out what size wing you want this to be. So I've kind of pre-picked one here that I think is going to be about the right size. And just pulled this off. And what we're going to be doing is we are not going to be using this nice feather that we normally would use for a little soft hackle pattern, but we're going to just use this little phyllo plume that's off the very bottom. Now what Tracy had done was he had sat down one evening or over a couple of evenings, tied a bunch of soft hackle little blue wing olives, where he would probably come in here, tie this in, and then wrap this like hackle. So at the end, he had all these little pieces left. It probably looked like he had 20 of these sitting on his table. He thought, well, what am I going to do with that? Or is there anything I can do with that? And then light must have gone off, and what he decided was he's going to mount this on this hook on top of everything else, and this little phyllo plume is going to go back, giving the appearance of a wing starting to pop out. And from there the batwing emerger was designed. So the first thing we got to look at is we're going to flip this over. We're going to do a little prep here. And a couple ways you can do this. You can cut this off because we got to get back into this little phyllo plume. Probably the easiest way to do that is just go right next to the hook, or I should say the stem, and cut everything back to that point. Let go a few more. There's a few good feathers in there I don't want. So this is just a totally soft looking little bug. Okay. Now you want to predetermine, I'm going to tie this in with the curve up like that, because ultimately I'm going to pull this over so that those legs go backwards. So if you grab the center of the stem with a pair of pliers, stroke all these feathers out of the way, and then while you're at it, it doesn't hurt to just give this stem a few little quick whacks with your plier to kind of flatten it out. And then I'm going to cut this off because we don't need a lot of it. I'm going to lay that right in the position. And tie this thing in. A few fibers in my way, I'll pull those back. At this point, you just want to make sure that this piece is nicely tied in. All right, believe it or not, we're pretty close to this being finished up. A little bit of dubbing. And this is super fine. This particular color, this gray olive, I think matches this blue and olive really nice. And I'll start my dubbing. I usually do about one wrap right by the stem, and then as I come up, I want to match the diameter of that bead instead of this being totally thick right from the start. So there is a little bit of a taper into this abdomen. Let's get a few more wraps right in here. There we go. And then jump our thread right up to the front. Okay, now what I like to do is reposition this hook so that gravity kind of helps us out, and this part of the hook is flat. Then I'm going to push this over, stroke all these fibers backwards into the natural position, and then I can strip what I don't need off. This way it keeps you from trying to predetermine how much of this you want in there. Okay, there we go. And next, we're just going to tie that stem in. Thread wants to pop right down to the eye. Let it do that. Make sure you got a few good wraps in there so it's nice and tight. Pick the stem up. I run my thread right underneath the stem. And then with some really tippy, sharp scissors, go ahead and snip that off so it's not into the eye. And then I bring my thread back up and create a little tapered head. second whip finish. Make sure everything's tight. Sure that wing looks good. And that is the bat wing emerger. What I like about this fly is I love the looks of this wing up top, flowing back very naturally. The bead set in the thorax, which gives it a little bit of flash. And of course a biot. What is there not to like about that? I just think that fly is just super sexy looking. Give it a shot. Fish it behind a attractor pattern or a big nymph for your weight. Put this on about 18-20 inches behind and let that dangle behind there. And or you can fish it behind a dry fly. So there are a couple different ways you can do it. Probably even put some floatants up here in the wings, or some frogs fanny, some Shimazaki. Now comes with a little applicators with a brush, so you could apply it right there and then just fish it right in the film. But great little pattern. You can tie them in pale morning duns and then also this blue wing olive. And I hope you enjoy tying it as much as I do. Thanks for watching.